I'm Monica. Welcome to Flexible Perspective. So, I've been talking about the legacy of slavery, how there were practices put in place at the inception of slavery that evolved and changed, but pretty much have stayed the same until now. So we talked about division based on color. I did a couple videos about being triggered by color. And today I want to talk about the African American as less than, the African American as inauthentic American. So that's obvious how that was put into place at the inception of slavery. We weren't even counted as full citizens. And the way that manifests itself today, I mean, there are many layers of how that works today, but the one that comes to mind is something that's happening in the news right now. So we have had several politicians talk about the fact that they are against teaching the 1619 project in schools. The 1619 project, I'm sure everyone knows, is a project that talks about the magnitude of the impact that slavery had on our country at its inception and today. It's interesting to me, it's not interesting to me, I'm sorry. It's insulting to me when I hear politicians rail against that project and say that it should not be taught in schools, even going so far as to say that they would advocate for penalties for schools who decide to teach that curriculum. Now, keep in mind that, of course, if that curriculum is taught, it will be taught alongside all other aspects of American history. Here's how you might think, well, what does that have to do with the Black American as a second-class citizen? Well, there are a couple things. First, slavery happened to Black Americans, but it did not just involve Black Americans. It's American history. So trying to excise that part of American history out of our national conversation, out of our U.S. history classes, is the same as taking away a large part of the history that most profoundly affected my ancestors. That again is treating Black Americans as second-class citizens. However uncomfortable it might be, however disturbing it might be to mine the depths of slavery, it's important to our reconciliation. The very idea that we would not study slavery, that we would diminish it and elevate only a certain part of American history, is the same as elevating certain people in America. Some people know who their great-grandfather was, where their great-grandmother came from, what city they were born in. Some of us don't. Some of us have no record of anything prior to this country. And so to have the people who, can trace their history back to other countries and have stories about other countries, look at us who through no fault of our own have no history really except for the history here in America, and say things like, they don't understand our values, they are destroying our history. There's something wrong with that, and I think we should examine that and again stop it, because it's a way of saying ultimately that Black Americans are inauthentic Americans, when that is absolutely not true. Okay, another way in which we are treated as second-class citizens, of course, would be gerrymandering. I mean, imagine this. In 1965, the year I was born, there was a Voting Rights Act, and the purpose of it was to stop localities and states from actually having laws that prevented or deterred Black Americans from voting. That's a big deal. That wasn't that long ago, okay? It was a long time ago, but not really a long time ago. And we still have those issues today. And with gerrymandering, with suppression of the vote in certain communities. That, again, at the end of the day, is treating Black Americans like second-class citizens. It's saying that, okay, it's okay for us not to take into consideration their desires as it relates to voting, right? And you know what? In the midst of all this, it's always important to understand that Black Americans only comprise 13% of the population. If you think about that, that is incredible. All of this rancor, all of this fear, anger, hatred for a portion of the population that's only 13%. I believe, again, this started at the inception of slavery, and we've just not been able to totally reconcile because we have not dealt with our past. You know, some people might disagree with me on this, but another place that I felt it sort of magnified the Black American as not quite fully American was this whole thing with the kneeling. Okay, with the football, with sports, but mostly it started with football players kneeling. If you recall, Colin Kaepernick, I think it's probably been 3.5 years ago now, he kneeled at a during the national anthem in order, per his words, because at the end of the day, he's the only one who can say why he was kneeling. He expressed to anyone who would listen that he was kneeling to magnify the fact that unarmed Black Americans were being killed by police officers. That's what he said, and he's the only one who knows. What was incredible to me as I watched that whole situation unfold is that there were people who did not know him who said, nope, that's not why he's doing it. He is doing it to disrespect the flag. As an American, you should be able to say and give reasons why you're doing whatever you're doing, and have other Americans say, I disagree with what you're doing, but not be able to twist what you're doing into something that is not true. But that's what happened. It's only people with more power who can literally tell the public that what a person says they're doing is not what they're doing. Again, this was Colin Kaepernick, Black man, as second-class citizen. This was those who stood with him as second-class citizen. And you know what? It went so far that he still doesn't have a job in the NFL today. He was blackballed because he kneeled in protest of racism. And again, it's an example of people saying tacitly, maybe not explicitly, but people saying, you don't have the American right of freedom of speech. You don't have the American right to state what you're doing and why you're doing it. We're going to say what you're doing. It'll be something totally different than what you're saying, and we're going to be the ones that people listen to. So again, I am trying so hard to keep my videos short. I keep saying that, and then they're still long. So I'm going to stop with those examples. Thank you, and have a great day. Please subscribe to my channel, and please give me comments about what you think. Okay, thanks. Have a great day.